What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be discussing the Demon House of Detroit. So a couple of years ago, somewhere around Halloween time, I brought you guys the story of a home in Gary, Indiana that was said to be home to more than 200 demons. The story wasn't as popular at that time as it is now, and I think, at least in my opinion, that's mainly due to the fact that the Ghost Adventures did a documentary of sorts on the location, and Zach ended up having to wear prism glasses when his vision was permanently damaged by the demons in the home. He went sort of nuts as he stayed in the house, and I really don't blame him, because when you watch the footage of what happens when all is said and done and he finally laid down to try to go to sleep, well, let's just say it's chilling to say the least. I'm someone who's used to seeing demonic entities, but it terrified me nonetheless because it isn't something you expect to see while watching Ghost Adventures or any other ghost hunting show. Not on television anyway. I have my own reasons, but aside from Zach and his crew and anything done by Dave Schrader, I don't normally watch those types of shows because most of them piss me off by how they behave towards the spirits in the locations, both demonic and otherwise, and I've discussed that at length in my live streams. Anyways, Zach and the boys had the house destroyed and mowed to the ground to hopefully put an end to the demonic infestation for once and for all. I would love to see how the neighbors and other people in Gary are holding up and what their experiences have been since that time when they had it bulldozed to the ground, but there's really no way of knowing so far. And the reason I really want to know is because it just doesn't work that way. You don't just bulldoze the house and then the demons, where do you think they go? It probably would have been better to keep the house up and just not allow anyone in. So the Ammon Demon House, the house in Gary, Indiana, is one time when we discussed a house that seems to be full in and of itself of demonic creatures and activity. So I recently came across a few other places too that are said to be infested with demons or at the very least demonic creatures. And since I know so many of you guys enjoy watching videos and discussing that type of thing, I've decided to bring one of them to you here today. There were actually more than I ever could have imagined to choose from, but I want to start off with the so-called Demon House of Detroit, which is, of course, located in Detroit, Michigan in the United States. Hauntings in general can be terrifying for most people, regardless of what type of spirit or entity is inside the place. If you aren't someone who's always prepared for this sort of infiltration or some kind of attack, it can ruin your life and cause a myriad of mental and physical health issues on top of it. Not to mention the fact that most people will convince themselves that they or their loved ones are going crazy, rather than even consider the notion that some sort of haunting is taking place. The haunting in the Demon House of Gary, Indiana happened fairly recently, back in 2011, but the one in Detroit goes back even further to 1962. Let's jump right in. So at some point, and I don't have the exact dates, at some point in 1962, a man named William Adams, who was a normal working class man who was known and respected in his community and worked the graveyard shift at the local Detroit Cadillac plant right there in Detroit, Michigan, had just moved into a rental home with his family. There wasn't anything particularly special about the family, and by all accounts, they were considered average, everyday, a normal family for the time, and nothing about them stood out as strange or odd or weird in any way. However, they were about to be at the center of one of not only the strangest, but also the most intense hauntings to ever take place in the United States, both for that time and up until the present day. It was one of the most bizarre and terrifying hauntings the city has ever seen, and we're going to discuss it here today. I just want to say that I was pretty disappointed with how this one ended because there's no further information. Nothing. You'll see what I'm talking about. So it's like, yes, it's terrifying. Yes, it's chilling, but when the family moved into the home, it started with nightmares, as it usually does, and mainly it was William who was having them. William needed to sleep during the day because of the overnight shifts he was working at the plant. So he took to sleeping in a bedroom at the back of the house, which was very much secluded from the rest of the house and therefore secluded from the noise of his 5 children. They're kids. They make noise all day long. Trust me. It doesn't matter how old or young they are. So shortly after the family settled into their new home, terrifying and very vivid nightmares would start to plague all of them, specifically though, and more so, William himself. It's said that the nightmares were particularly horrifying and seemed so real that when he would wake up from them, he didn't immediately feel better and still felt as though it had all just happened to him in real life and not while he was there comfortably sleeping in his bed. He would wake in a cold sweat constantly, screaming about grotesque creatures and images plaguing him in those bad dreams, to the point the neighbors would hear him and become concerned for his safety. Every single time he went to sleep, he would have these horrifying nightmares without exception. But when he would wake up, 90% of the time, he could never remember exactly what had been the subject of the intense dreams. He knew he felt they were real, and he knew they were terrifying, he knew they were horrifying, and he knew that there were grotesque creatures presenting themselves, but that's mainly because that's what he was yelling about while he was sleeping. But he had no memory whatsoever of exactly what they entailed. Guys, I'm sure we've all had this happen to us at least once, right? At least once in our lives. You wake up terrified, knowing you just had a horrible nightmare, but you can't put your finger on what was so horrible about it. I know I've had it happen to me, and in fact, it happens constantly to me. I mean, I'm just saying. He also wasn't getting really any sleep because it wasn't like he was only having one nightmare per night and then waking up sweating, terrified, and screaming bloody murder. Then he would, like most normal people, calm down, go back to sleep, and have regular dreams or non-memorable dreams. No, he was having nightmare after nightmare after nightmare all night long or all day long, depending on when he was sleeping, but it happened every single time he would go to sleep, and eventually it started to affect how he functioned. His performance suffered at work, and he really thought that he was having some sort of nervous breakdown or something else that was happening to him mentally. So he decided for once and for all he was not going to be sleeping in the secluded back room anymore. Instead, he would be sleeping in his own bedroom with his wife. Strangely enough, when he would sleep in the bedroom, he wouldn't have the nightmares and would sleep very well. He didn't even consider that any of this was paranormal, and I mean, why would he? It was the 1960s, and really no one immediately thought of demons, ghosts, and hauntings when strange things were happening to them or in their homes. It was a different time, and even if someone were to think along those lines about something demonic or like a haunting happening to them or happening in their homes, they wouldn't ever admit it out loud for fear of being ridiculed or much worse. Unfortunately, it wasn't only nightmares that this poor family would have to face, and with the nightmares ceasing, the other activity really ramped up. The family later reported that the back room, specifically where William had been sleeping in the beginning when they first moved into the home, had a sinister energy to it, and it was almost like something unseen and evil lurked in there. The family had a dog and it wouldn't even go near the room, and all 5 of the children avoided it like the plague as well, saying they heard not only strange noises, but scary voices coming from it too. William would often go into the room when he wasn't sleeping just to see if he could figure out what was going on with the room, probably to try to find a reasonable and rational explanation to put his and his family's minds at ease. He said it was always so much colder in that room than anywhere else in the house, even when the heat would be on full blast, and even in the summer months when it was brutally hot outside, that room would be freezing. Most of you guys know, and if you don't, shame on you. It's Gemma Jade Channel 101 that is one of the first signs that you have a haunting or something going on paranormal in your home. Freezing cold rooms for no reason. Every single member of the Addams household reported that there was an air or energy of extreme dread that pervaded that room and that overtook anyone who entered it at any given time. They just couldn't figure it out. And William said the room was barely a room at all and was really just a tiny little space that, along with the closet, had barely been big enough to even fit the bed. By all appearances, so when someone would just look at the room, there was nothing menacing, evil, or threatening about it at all, but the dogs and kids were absolutely terrified of it, and though there was nothing visible, there was something awful and scary about that room that no one was able to put their finger on right away. Almost unbelievably, and guys, I was shocked when I read this. Let me know if you agree with me on this one. It's just my opinion. But when William's grandmother came to visit them in the new house for the first time, he gave that room for her to sleep in and apparently didn't give a second thought to just using it as a guest room. The grandmother gratefully accepted the room as she wasn't aware of what had been happening with it. But after the first night, she refused to ever step foot in it again and flat out refused to sleep in it. Avi. The grandmother said there had been sounds in the room all along the floor and walls that sounded like someone was trying to break into the house. Whether it was the strange noises or something else that she didn't want to discuss, and my money's on the latter, but we'll most likely never know, the grandmother left and went home rather hastily after only staying one night in the little room in the house. William, still trying to think rationally and reasonably about it all, thought that perhaps someone had been trying to break in while his grandmother had been sleeping in there. You know, maybe it really was that someone was trying to burgle them, and he called the local police. They arrived, and after searching the inside and outside of the house thoroughly, found no indication that anyone had ever been attempting to break in at all. This is the point where, even though he really didn't want to accept it, William started to at least entertain the notion that something out of the ordinary and possibly paranormal was going on in his new home. So he tried looking into the history of the home and of the property, but all he could glean from that information was that the tiny back room had been an addition that was put onto the original home a little while after it had been built. There was nothing to explain what was happening. There was nothing, no mention of anything paranormal or even out of the ordinary at all in all of the information that he could find, which, as I said, wasn't much. William's cousin, a man named Shirley Patterson, eventually went to visit the house. William gave him the room to sleep in as well. So dude is still using the room to house his guests, even though he knows something is not right with it. Way to go. William decided not to tell his cousin what had been happening in the room and kind of used him as sort of bait. He knew Shirley was a very logical and practical man and wanted to see if he would also report anything strange or scary happening while he stayed in there. And I kind of understand where he's coming from, but not really, because at the end of the day, he did put people in danger by leaving him in that room, in my opinion, you know, maybe a little bit. Shirley was a very big skeptic of the paranormal, so it stood to reason that he wouldn't get all bent out of shape over every little thing, and something big would have to have happened for him to even mention anything odd or bizarre going on during his stay there. Shirley had the first actual experience in the house that could be summed up to something paranormal going on, definitely without a doubt. Shirley said he felt something turn him over in bed and put him onto his back while he was sleeping. When he opened his eyes and realized what was happening or what had happened, he said he saw what looked like a woman standing in the doorway of the room but facing the other way, so back towards him. The woman had long hair and was wearing a blue dress. At first, he thought it was Mrs. Adams, but after looking for more than a few seconds, he realized it looked nothing like her, even from behind, and it couldn't have been her after all. At the same time, the realization that there was a strange and unknown woman standing in the doorway of his room, he felt fear overtake him that he knew was incredibly irrational, but that was overwhelming him nonetheless. It had overtaken him anyway. He was terrified. Shirley himself would speak on it later, and he said of what happened to him, quote, "I didn't know anything about the room. There was no reason for me to suspect anything, no reason to be afraid. It seems that I was in the bed for just a few minutes. I don't know whether I was asleep or not. I was facing the wall, and then I felt something turn me over. Don't ask me to describe the feeling. All I know is that it rolled me over, and then I saw it standing outside the bedroom door. At first, I thought it was Lillian, but I started to tremble. It was a woman with long hair, and she had her back to me, looking into the kitchen. She was wearing a short fur coat and a kind of blue dress," end quote. So I kind of missed this last time. He's saying that he knows it was the woman that turned him over from laying on his side to laying on his back. This is a logical and practical man who, you know, never would believe in something paranormal, like not happening, especially back in the 60s, but he believed it. He believed immediately that's what was happening, that something just was not right, and it had to be paranormal. It had to be. Shirley was so overcome by the sheer terror he was feeling, seemingly at the sight of the back of the woman by the door, that he started screaming at the top of his lungs. The moment he let the scream out, all of the lights in the house went out and plunged everyone, including the now terrified Shirley, into total and complete darkness. He jumped up, and despite having just seen a woman there, he stumbled and fumbled his way out of the room and into the kitchen just beyond it. Of course, by that time, the rest of the house had been woken up by either his screams or all of the lights going out at once. And when he turned on the light in the kitchen, he did so while telling Mrs. Adams that there was a woman standing there between the back room and the kitchen. At first, this didn't really make any sense to me, because the way it's explained is that he would have had to have walked by the woman in order to get from the room to the kitchen, and therefore should have known whether she was there or not, but I digress, right? I was saying, like, he had to walk past her. So didn't he know that she was no longer there? Of course, once the light went on and the two of them looked, there was no woman standing there. And in fact, there was no one else visible in the small room or kitchen at all in all that time. While Shirley and Lillian Adams were standing in the kitchen discussing what had just happened to them, they started hearing strange groaning sounds coming from the small bedroom in the back, and a rotten stench permeated the air, seemingly coming from the room as well, which made everyone in the house feel sick to their stomachs as it wafted through the house and made its way into all of the other rooms in the home too. It actually made their noses burn and their eyes water. Shirley and Lillian tried to determine what the smell was and where the groaning noises were coming from while still standing in the kitchen together. Suddenly, a loud scream pierced through the air that was described by them as, quote, like the mournful scream of something that was half human and half animal, end quote. The utility room was nearby, and the trapdoor inside of it opened up on its own and slammed down with such force that they were all in a state of complete and total panic and terror. Once William finally got home from his overnight shift after his wife and cousin told him what had happened while he was gone, he called the police again. The police showed up quickly and upon searching the home, noticed all of the doors and windows were locked and there were no signs of any kind of attempted break-in or vandalism in general. Once again. It seems at this point that William had had enough, and he decided he was going to sleep in the room the following night in order to confront whatever was there once and for all. This is a very, very bad idea, guys, and it's extremely dangerous. But I can see how someone who doesn't live, work, and pretty much breathe in the paranormal field, that they wouldn't know or even consider how dangerous this actually is. William got much more than he anticipated, to say the least, and he said about what happened to him the next night, quote, I'm not the kind of guy who believes in ghosts. At least I didn't then. I'm a grown man with a family. I've been in the army. I just couldn't convince myself that there was anything to it. I had to try again and see what would happen. I don't know how long it was. I was still awake. I heard a noise in the room. I turned over to look, and there was a face inches away from me. Inches away. It was the most horrible thing I've ever seen. The eyes stared past me and the mouth moved to talk, but only a hissing noise came out and a terrible stench. All I could think of that next morning was that if the bedroom door had been closed that Sunday night, I would have beeped myself beating against it to get out, end quote. Unalived, I guess is the word I should use. He would have unalived himself. The sight of the face there, just inches away from his own, there in the darkness of the already creepy and very active bedroom, sent William into a full-blown frenzied panic. He jumped out of bed, ran as fast as he could from the room, and went screaming down the hallway. He was absolutely traumatized and terrorized by what he had just experienced. Apparently, he was in such a state of hysterics that his cousin and wife had to swaddle him in a blanket and sit him in a chair in order to just get him to calm down. As they were trying to soothe William, the repugnant and horrible stench wafted through the air again and invaded the whole house once more. It was so bad, in fact, that Shirley vomited because of it. The family had finally had enough, and they didn't even wait for the sun to come up before they left. They packed a few of their belongings up, woke their kids in the middle of the night, and all of them went to a neighbor's house to spend the night. They moved out of the home the very next day and never went back there again. The family wasn't able to move everything out all in one trip, but they were too frightened to go back for the rest of their belongings. Lillian's sister and her brother Leo came by to go back to the house and help her pack up the rest of the stuff so that she could be done with the haunted house and all of the demonic activity for once and for all. Leo, though, for whatever reason, wanted to check out the back room for himself to see if anything was really happening. I don't think it was that he didn't believe the family or anything like that, but it seems more like it was to satisfy his own curiosity. Maybe he did believe them and was fascinated or something, or maybe he wanted to have his own experience. There are a lot of people like that nowadays, right? Who choose to have experiences, not like, like someone like me who can't help it, but, like people on ghost hunting shows. They want the experiences. They want to, for whatever reason, have their own, maybe to prove to themselves that the paranormal exists. But I don't know what his motives were. But I mean, most of us right here on this channel and across this community would go on a ghost hunt or travel to a so-called demon house in search of answers, right? For the most part. So while I don't hold it against poor Leo that he was curious, I do feel bad and caution anyone like him who doesn't know what they're dealing with to maybe leave well enough alone, or at the very least, leave it to the experts, which came few and far between back in the 1960s. I mean, there weren't that many experts in the paranormal. There were some, sure, but not that many. Not nearly like we see today. And today we have the experts, right? So what I'm saying though is don't do this. Don't go on your own investigation of a place that you know is active, especially with this type of demonic and malicious, malevolent activity, just to see what's going on. Don't do that. It's very, very dangerous, and you could lose your life. It's that serious, guys. So Leo went into the room, and it said that when he initially went in, he didn't believe in ghosts and wanted to see if there was some other rational explanation that he could find that might help his family that maybe William and everyone else had missed. Once he went into that room, though, his unbelief would change to belief in a matter of seconds. Virginia said about what happened to Leo, quote, "I stood out in the kitchen and Leo said he was going to lie down on the bed for 10 minutes in the dark. A few minutes later, I heard this awful groan coming from the bedroom. If it was Leo, I had never heard him make a sound like that before. Then he came rushing through the door into the kitchen with the most horrible look on his face, like he was scared out of his mind. I asked him what he saw, but he wouldn't tell me anything," end quote. I find this incredibly frustrating when people go in search of activity, and then when they find it, they refuse to tell people what happened to them. I think it's very rude. I think it's very ignorant, but maybe he was one of those people that thought that by talking about it, he would either bring it to him again, or maybe he thought saying it out loud would make it real. And God forbid we should be believing our own experiences as they happen to us if it doesn't align with what we've been taught and told our whole lives about what's possible and what's real and what isn't. I'm just saying, not that I'm like really mad or anything. Leo never told anyone what happened to him, though, and we will never have the answers because of that. It's been reported by Virginia that others that knew him said that he had nightmares for months after the fact and refused to ever step foot into the house ever again, just like the rest of the family. There's another reason we might never have the answers, though, and that's because the house has forever remained vacant since the Adamses moved out, and the landlady, agitated by the so-called notoriety, refused to allow any paranormal investigators on the property and refused to allow any investigations to otherwise be done as well. I would really love to have a crack at that house. I really would. I'm confident I would be able to figure out what's going on in a matter of minutes, but I would just like to go and see, even if I didn't figure anything out. You know what I'm saying? I really want to know the history of the property and see what it was about that room. However, it's just as reasonable to believe that the whole house was infested and the new addition, which was that back room, added on to the original home, even though it said it was added on very soon after the original home was built there, was simply where the demons or evil spirits chose to congregate. But that's just my own speculation and opinion. Like, maybe they were throughout the house, but once that room was put on, they kind of moved back there. Or maybe someone did a ritual or something that forced them to stay back there. Maybe that's why the room was built in the first place. Maybe, I don't know. Let me know in the comments below what your opinions are. What are you speculating? What do you guys think? Another thing, though, that I found very interesting is that there was a trap door in the utility room that opened and closed all by itself, and no one mentioned ever anything about exploring that part of the home down inside of the trap door to see if there was anything strange about that part of the house as well. I really couldn't find any other sources beside the one I used here to find any current information on the house and what's become of it. I highly doubt that the same landlady still owns it from the 1960s. But the information was a bit choppy in that it said she forbade investigators as the house's notoriety grew. So I'm just wondering if perhaps it's only been recently that the current landlady won't let people in. I don't know. If any of you guys know or can find that information, email me or put it in the comments. Also, if any of you can find any current information on this home, to which I also couldn't find an exact address, please feel free to let me know in the comments or to email me about what you've discovered. If you like this video, please let me know, because there are plenty more so-called demonic houses or demon homes that I would be more than happy to cover here on this channel in the upcoming weeks. I like to cover a wide variety of topics here and have an easier time doing so when you all give me feedback on what you'd like to see, hear, and learn about. Otherwise, it's just up to me, and sometimes I have a hard time keeping up with what anyone else is interested in at any given time. With all of that being said, that's all I have for you today, guys. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed the content, if you enjoyed hanging out with me, and if you enjoyed hanging out with each other if you were in the premiere. Spread the love by sharing this video. Subscribe if you haven't already, and please make sure your notification bell is turned on. Also, if you are already subscribed, just go and check. Go and make sure you're still subscribed, because YouTube's being a little bit wonky with that, and I know a lot of people are not getting notifications, and that's because they're magically unsubscribed. Please check out the description box for some important links and some information on what it is that I really do. You know, I make a lot of things. I sell a lot of things. The link for jivecreations.com should be down there too. If it's not an actual link, it's just jivecreations.com. And you can find Gemma Jade merchandise, Ghost Dragon ZW merchandise on there, or anything that you want customizable, custom made. What I have right here is a glow in the dark, and it glows like red and purple, which is really cool. Gemma Jade Paranormal cup. And this is a design that we have, the haunted house design. In case you don't want to walk around with a picture of me, we also have Plague Doctor, a Plague Doctor design. You have the Let the Dude Out of the Basement, which is from the Wednesday night stream with Ghost Dragons and I always joking about me keeping him in the basement and feeding him nothing but waffle sandwiches. I don't know, guys. You have to be there. On Wednesday nights, you will find me and Ghost Dragon ZW live for Live Intuitive Oracle starting at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Come on in. I'll pull one random card from one random deck. I'll pull your spirit team in, and I will tell you what to expect in the next week or two of your life. On any given Thursday, you will normally find, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, either myself, Ghost Dragon ZW, and Paranormal Pixie, Miss Lara, for Chillax and Chat, or you will find Conversations with Lara, the Paranormal Pixie. I should say show, because she can go for longer than an hour. You can go in there, ask her questions. Chillax and Chat is really a stream where we want you guys to come in and ask questions, and we just have a great time on this channel no matter what we're doing, so especially when we are live. Every other Monday at noon Eastern. So not the Monday that you're watching this, but the following Monday, myself and Ghost Dragon ZW go live at 12 noon Eastern for afternoon talk. And I believe our next show, again, not the Monday you're watching this, but the Monday after, we are going to have a special guest on, Long Island Bigfoot. That is super duper exciting. Ways to donate to the channel, PayPal and Cash App are in the description box. How to join my Patreon. If you join my Patreon for $20 a month or more, every month you will automatically receive a free full personal intuitive oracle reading from me. It's a thank you, because I don't get to do a lot with my Patreon. Just because, not only because I don't have the time, but because something is messed up. Like the link between my phone and my Patreon it doesn't work. So what I do is I give out gifts to my patrons, and I also do the free intuitive oracle read for them every single month without fail. That's a thank you to you. But there's also, like I said, PayPal and Cash App as well for the month of August. So all through August, for September, I'm doing half-priced readings, general remotes. So instead of $40, they are only $20. Send it to my PayPal or Cash App with the tag reading, and you will receive a September reading from me. And if you don't know anything about what I do with Oracle or what Live Intuitive Oracle is, come on in on a Wednesday night and check it out. You don't have to get a reading if you don't want to. Just come in. It's the best chat on the internet, I swear to you. It has nothing to do with me. It's the people in there. And I'm rambling because that's what I do, okay? Links to all three of my books on Amazon, the Kindle and paperback versions of Missing the Faith Theory, Encounters with Evil, 101 True and Terrifying Stories, and my most recent book that came out in November of 2022, Shadow Entities Beyond, or Sleep Paralysis and Beyond. I always get that title mixed up because I changed it so many times. I'm also almost done with my new book, which will be my fourth one. Not done yet, but almost. So it should be released probably in the fall sometime. It's called Danger at Your Doorstep, and I haven't finished the title yet, but it's probably going to be like information and encounters with the black-eyed kids. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. I'll definitely let you know when it's out. Guys, please go purchase merch. Check out my Amazon wishlist gift link if you want to send me a gift through there. There are decks, there are crystals. There's cases of waters that I can't find in my town anymore. Like, there's so much stuff there, ranging from like the tiniest bit of money to like insanity. So please go on over there and do that. Or like I said, donations are how I live and how I support myself. So I do appreciate it very much. Sorry for rambling, but I just miss you guys. I miss you guys so much. Be kind to each other, guys. It doesn't cost anything. Never accept anything less than others being kind to you. And always be kind to yourselves, right? We don't want to forget to be kind to ourselves while we're worrying about being kind and sweet to everyone else. If nobody told you today, and even if they did, I believe in you. Don't ever let anyone tell you you can't do something. Don't let them make you feel less than, worthless, dehumanizing you, belittling you. Nobody has the right to put you down. And if somebody's not supporting you and your dreams, kick them to the curb. Boy bye, girl bye, right? Don't let those kind of negative people affect your energy. You are amazing. You are tremendous. You are beautiful. You are perfectly made by the Creator. Abundance and blessing is your birthright. I totally believe in you. You can make any dream come true that you want to. I am a walking testament to that. If you don't know my story, maybe one day I'll tell it to you. But if you know, you know. Definitely the truth. You can become and do whatever you want. I wanted to be a best-selling author since I was a little girl. And even after everything I've been through in my life, I made that dream come true 2 years ago. Trust me, it was against all odds. So guys, I love you all so much. Be kind, be kind, be kind. Always go in grace. Smile at a stranger, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.